We had like 60-degree weather yesterday and then today, and then we had like a big rainstorm come through. Well, these are the pallets I've been trying to salvage wood from. I better flip these so none of the stray cats impale themselves on them. Here we go. Anyway, I raised quail. And I thought of watching the video and doing a voiceover, but I feel like talking outside instead. And maybe I'll intersperse clips of my quail while I'm talking. So, I have a novel I've been working on and off on since 2018. And the concept for the novel has gone on since before then. But I finally actually got to work in 2018. When I went into the city to this your stereotypical independently owned coffee shop with eccentric decor and funny names for the coffee beverages. A place where you might sit with your laptop and be pretentious and pretend to work on something brilliant when really you're just enjoying the ambience, and staring at your laptop is just something to do. Now, I did take in the ambience. I really liked the place. It was comfy, and the coffee was quite stimulating, especially because there's plenty of honey to put in it. It tasted really good. So the first day I was going to go there to work on it, I'm walking through the city of Concord, New Hampshire, and I found 4 people standing back to back with laptop computers, and they're showing videos of horrific acts of animal abuse. These were animal rights activists. I think they were called Anonymous for the Voiceless. And it was an interesting turn of events because the novel, which I'm writing, involves a lot of animal characters. And they work with humans. They live harmoniously, generally with humans. I didn't even intend to encounter these people. They're there. And I'm looking at these videos, and there's some horrible stuff I saw. There was a video of, because there are pigs that were being herded into like this slaughterhouse. And they were beating them with it looked like these big cricket bats with studs on them, like pyramid type studs. And the guys beating them are going, "You dumb pigs, why aren't you going where we want you to?" And they're smacking them. And these pigs are screaming, they're terrifying, they're getting beaten. It was an absolutely horrible thing to see. I started to cry. I didn't want to cry. I was embarrassed to cry in public, And there was another person there, a lady who was there with the 4 people with computers. And I said, "Why are they beating them?" She explained that's what happens in some pig slaughterhouses. I'm like, "Why don't they just peacefully shoot them in the head? Why do they have to do this?" And she explained to me that this is what happens in industrial slaughterhouses sometimes. I could not fucking believe it. I was absolutely just dumbfounded by what I saw as just terrible inhumanity in the slaughter of animals. There was also a video of these sort of revolving gas chambers. They were kind of like an underground Ferris wheel where you put the pigs in them and they get cycled underground into like this carbon monoxide suffocation chamber where they gasp and choke to death. It was horrifically heartbreaking. Especially because some of the main characters in my story would be pigs. Weird coincidence, weird arrangement of events. Now, some people would say that, fuck these vegan activists and their concerns. We're the top of the food chain. The animals exist to feed us, and we do what we want with them. I don't feel that way. And I felt even less that way upon seeing it. It was heart-wrenching. It was absolutely it ripped me apart. And so I took their card, business card, if you will. And I went about my business, kind of shaken up. And I went to the coffee shop, got my coffee. I sat down to start writing, and I had, the beginning of the book in my mind, and I started working on it. And I looked up. They have like a figure someone made. It's like a wicker basket, but also is like a frog. I don't have pictures of it anymore, I don't think. But it was really neat. I'm like, oh, it was like an anthropomorphic frog, maybe like a wicker basket with a metal head. It was really cool. I'm like, oh, I was going to have frog characters in my story too. So there's a lot of these weird synchronicities going on. And yes, I do believe in synchronicity. And it serves a purpose. I'm sorry, I couldn't help just notice all the burls on this tree. I wonder if I can cut the burls and sell them to a woodworker. He has more of the entrepreneurial spirit I've been thinking about. Man, lots of burls. Anyway. So I was shocked enough that, at least for the time being, I became a vegetarian. Not a vegan. Though I do recognize that even in milk production and egg production, there are inhumanities inflicted upon animals. The warehousing of chickens and just overcrowded conditions and the pretty much, chaining, not chaining, but imprisoning cows in tiny spaces and just pumping them as a source of milk. That's another thing. It's wrong. But the time I wasn't going to eat flesh, at least. I couldn't bring myself to do it, not unless it was humanely raised and humanely slaughtered. But I didn't have much money, and I didn't know how I would even be able to give myself enough protein by eating just vegetarian diet. But I tried. All right, so I eat eggs and I drank milk and I ate yogurt and cheese, and for a while I lived. My diet was vegetarian. And I was, I felt tempted, put that in quotes, scare quotes, tempted to eat bacon. But then I thought of the pigs who were being beaten with those modified cricket bats. And I was thinking about their suffering. I felt like their souls are crying out from the grave. And it was absolutely horrible. But over time, probably a couple months at least, I started to feel run down. And I knew that if you're vegetarian, then you need to supplement B12, and I did that. But it still didn't help. And I was feeling more and more run down. There's something else missing. I was eating a variety of beans. I was eating plenty of eggs, drinking plenty of milk, eating yogurt, eating cheese. I should be getting enough protein and all the essential amino acids, but and all the essential vitamins. And this is around the time I was engaged in intermittent fasting and conscientious eating. I was much thinner than I am today, I'll tell you that. I was feeling like shit. And then one day I'm like, okay, I'm going to get I was craving a meatball sub one day. So I went and got some meatballs. Or maybe I got the sub, I can't remember. But I had a meatball sub, and I felt so much better. Oh my God, rejuvenated. Something was missing. And I had what I needed, and I stopped being vegetarian, and I started rationalizing. It's well, okay, I'm not the one torturing animals, so the meat's going to go to waste. The crime is in the abuse of the animals, not in the cutting up of the flesh. So that's how I rationalize it to myself, and maybe that is the correct answer. I'm still feeling conflicted about it right now. I really am. I know there are meat producers in the state who free range their animals. They live happy lives for as long as they live, right? The chickens wander, the pigs wander, the cows wander, whatever. And then when time comes, they quietly take them aside where no one else knows, and they shoot them in the head. And if you're going to kill animals, if you're going to raise domesticated animals and kill them, that seems like the best way to do it. And it seems to me perhaps the only thing better might be hunting wild animals who don't trust you and have a chance to evade you, and you go and shoot them. I mean, I can't think of a more honorable way to earn your food than to kill an animal that doesn't want to be around you. I guess it's kind of a warrior's perspective, and I don't know if that's my perspective, but I can understand it, and I can appreciate it, and I can respect it. But for years, up until a few days ago, I just bought meat where I could afford it. And now I'm feeling really fucking conflicted. Because yes, I'm not directly responsible for the torment of animals. But indirectly, I am. I mean, I have a contribution to cash flow, am I not? If I buy a steak from the grocery store, that trickles up the chain. Now, I understand I'm a drop in the bucket. And if I stop buying steak from the grocery store, it's not going to change shit. It requires mass action, or it's not going to change anything. I can't stop the slaughter of animals. Let me rephrase that. I can't stop the torment of animals. I can only contribute to the ethical raising of some animals. That's interesting food for thought, right? If I save up money and buy like a quarter of a cow or half a cow, at slaughter, you pay in advance, they raise the cow, and whatever, it's 1,200 pounds, they kill it, you get 400 pounds. Well, you gotta subtract the bones and skin and all. Maybe I get 300 pounds of meat. And if I had a cooler, I could stick it in a cooler, freezer. I'm coming over here. There's like a pit underneath a rock over here somewhere. That's like a bottomless pit. I want to show you. I guess I could do that. I can help. I can't destroy the industrial food system. I can only help build a more humane food system. And I'm totally fucking broke right now. If you watch my previous videos, and I encourage you to do so, please like or dislike, comment, subscribe. If you hate my videos, post hate comments, please. It only promotes my video anyway. So I think this is the pit. I'm not sure. I'm just a den. Let's see here. Can I turn on the light? I don't know if anything's down there. No, I don't think that's the pit. It's somewhere else, but there's that. Where's the pit? Anyway. I don't know where the pit is. I found it after I moved in here. I'm like, it seems like this pit goes on forever. Anyway, it's probably just a gap between two big boulders that are buried in the ground. So, the food system. Back on topic. So, I got to thinking about, well, what do I do this is going to lead to, like, preparedness and like post-apocalyptic type stuff. A lot of things are interrelated, so just bear with me, folks. Because I do think that amongst many collective sins, immoralities, evils, pick your favorite word, of our civilization, the inhumanity inflicted on animals is one of them. Amongst many others. It could be, you could add other things like usury, you can add bombing the shit out of other countries in order to prop up the value of the dollar is another one, and so on and so forth. But I'm going to talk about animals in particular. These are things which resonate spiritually. And there are ramifications. There are consequences. That's interesting. I wonder what was digging there. And so let's move ahead in the time stream here. You have the big scare about bird flu. It started, might have been 2022 with their first tricklings of it. 2023, it's just escalating. USDA going to major, like egg producing factories and mass slaughtering the chickens because bird flu was detected. I said, well, the USDA may come and kill my chickens if I have chickens. And if I have chickens, like, I was going to let them free range. I mean, I might put up fences to kind of encourage them to stay on the property, but, chickens do what chickens will do. I'd have to go out and look after them, and I'm not like, hey, I'm going to get a shotgun and go fucking kill every fox or every fish or cat or every bear that comes around. No, I'm more interested in repelling and deterring predatory animals than actually killing them. And that tree's interesting. So I decided on quail, because Coturnix quail, do not exist in the wild around here. And so you have to keep them caged up. You can't just let them loose. They'll get killed. They'll get butchered. They can't survive. They might find things to eat here and there, but eventually they'll just die. So I keep Coturnix quail because I know that, one, they'd be protected against contact with other birds, and therefore they wouldn't get the bird flu. And second, I wouldn't have to have a hostile encounter with the USDA if their agents came here to kill the flock. Still might anyways. It might be like, hey, a chicken flock half a mile from here, and there is one. Bird flu is found, so we're killing every bird, and we know that you have birds, so we're going to come kill them. Well, I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. I'll just say that I consider them part of my family. So if anyone wants to murder my quail, I'll respond as though someone's trying to murder my family. Make of that what you will. Because I absolutely love them. Once I hatched them out, and it was a lot of hard work. I got the eggs, got the incubator. I incubated them. I got some leaves here. That's cool. I got a brooder set up for them. I have multiple totes, so that way I could take them out of one tote, put them in the next clean tote, and then clean the first tote. I hatched 20. Had a few casualties. Some didn't make it. I'll give a few examples of that. All right. Gotta get my thoughts together. Hold on. Okay, I went inside now. I was walking around outside. Now I'm inside. And I'm going to talk about the birds that I lost when I was raising the quail. This is very important. This is a very important part of the story. I hope you can follow through with me. I probably shouldn't have had half a can of beer. It's a tall boy, so half a smash beer. Well, 3/4 of a smash beer before doing this. Because I couldn't remember the first quail to die. So I hatched out, I think, 20. And the last one to hatch had some sort of palsy. And let me just sidestep for a second. These are, what you're looking at are some bachelors in the bachelor hut while I was cleaning out the hutch. So every week, once a week, I remove all of the bedding and I scrape any chunks of poop off the wall, and I dump the poop tray that's underneath the mesh on the floor there. I make sure it's nice and clean, and every day they get fresh water, every day they get food, every day they get treats, every day I fill up their sand. So you see them there, they're tussling and doing what they do. I have an excess of males, and I can't kill them. I won't kill them. They're my family, and I will not just kill them and eat them. Now, euthanize them if they're seriously ill or seriously injured, but I will not kill them. So the first one to pass was Bartholomew. Now, Bartholomew, he had some sort of palsy. It reminded me of cerebral palsy. He could not control his bodily movements. He just convulsed all over the place. The way he flailed about was just very reminiscent of someone with CP. Now, at first, I thought maybe he just couldn't stand. And when he tried to stand, his legs splayed really bad. So I'm like, okay, typical thing you do with that is put the chick into a shot glass so he can't splay his legs. He has to stand up on his own two legs. And that way he can he could learn to stand. And I tried doing that, and he couldn't even right himself. I've tried to putting him on his feet in the shot glass. He would just flop over in the shot glass and like fold up on himself. It was absolutely ridiculous. And like, okay, well maybe he was toe balling too. I'm like, okay, well maybe if I tape his toes open, I use little pieces of tape, put them on his toes. This is standard procedure for quails that toe ball. And then you put his feet flat on the ground. Then he can hold himself up on his feet, and then you put him into the shot glass, and his legs will hold him up. You put him for like 10, 15 minutes, and then you take him out, let him rest, and then you put him back in again. No, he just flopped over again. And he was just like flop, 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 flop. And he just flopped constantly until like he passed out from exhaustion. He couldn't eat, he couldn't drink. It was terrible. And there was nothing more I could do. So after a day of flopping around, and I knew that before long he would suffer dehydration and starvation, I cried. I wept because my son was born deformed, and he's either gonna starve or I'm gonna have to euthanize him. So I picked him up and I carried him out, and I had him introduce him to all my kitty cats. We had 4 cats here, and introduced them to the dogs. The dogs didn't really give a shit. Even the cats didn't give a shit. But like, oh look, it's a little quail chick. I mean, the cats were interested in the chicks when they're in the brooder. They occasionally check them out, but then like they just piss off and go do their own thing. And then I took him and I dug a grave for him, and then I took him outside to see the wide world. And I showed him the trees, and I showed him the flowers, and I showed him the bugs, and I tried to show Bartholomew everything I could show him in my little world. I want him to have a piece, enjoy a little bit of the world before he passed away. Because he's innocent. He didn't deserve this. I know it's just genetic anomalies or maybe environmental anomalies, but animals don't deserve to suffer. They don't. They're not accountable for what they do. I mean, they can do bad things to each other. I've seen my cats be cruel to each other, and I can correct them and try to train them not to do it, but ultimately they're not morally accountable for their bad behavior. Humans are, because we actually have a choice. We can transcend our nature, where other animals, they have a nature that you can condition them around it, but in the end they still have their nature. So so Bartholomew was innocent, and I wanted him to just have a little taste of the world. So I showed him all the things I could, and the flowers, and the bugs on the plants, and just I said sweet things to him, and I coddled him, and then I put him down, and I shot him to put him out of his misery. And I took his remains, and I put him in a little cardboard coffin, and I did my own little hippie, faggy ritual. I put all kinds of sweet-smelling plants and flowers and salt on the body, and I wrote a letter, and I printed it out talking about the story of Bartholomew, and I put it in a Ziploc bag with some salt so it would soak up the moisture, and I buried him. And then, having hatched my last egg, at least I thought I hatched my last egg. There was a few eggs that were hatched yet, so I dealt with the birds who had hatched. A few days went by. I was waiting for any stragglers to hatch, and no one else hatched. So it was time to clean out the incubator and do a post-mortem. So I took out the unhatched eggs. There were 6 of them. And then the incubator, basically your typical incubator has like a flood region on the bottom where water comes in, and then there's like a stand on top that's raised up above the water, and there's little finger holes so you can pick it up and put it down. And I'll put pictures of that into this video so you can see it. And then you put the top on, and inside the top there's all the machinery. There's the heating element, there's the fan, there's all the electronics for monitoring the temperature and the humidity and all that. So I went to clean that out, and I found a baby quail underneath that raised floor, having drowned in the water, face down. And I had no freaking clue how it would have fit into the tiny little finger holes, but it did. And the only thing I could think of is that, so these creatures are typically supposed to hatch, I think, after 18 days. They hatched on day 14. So I'm guessing she might have been the first hatch before I could remove these little dividers between the rows of eggs. And I'll show you in a picture. And so there's a machine that rotates the eggs back and forth. And I can only guess that she hatched extra early. And it pushed her into the hole somehow. I don't know how her little body fit through that hole, but it did. And she went face down into it and drowned. Could have been a he, but I know I felt like a feminine perception of it. So I called a feminine name. I called the bird Innocent. And so I wept and I buried Innocent, and I also typed out a letter, and I put that in a plastic Ziploc bag with salt, and I did the same ritual as before. I put fragrant plants like clippings from pine trees and hemlock and spruce and juniper, and I had clover flowers and any other wildflowers I could find, and I put them all together, and I salted it. And I know it sounds super fucking gay and hippie-ish, and I don't care. That's who I am. And I buried her next to Bartholomew. So a few weeks later, the birds are coming up on 6 weeks. And it's time to put them outside into the hutches. Now these hutches I built them, and then I stained them with boiled linseed oil, and I wiped away all the excess oil. I made sure everything was clean, and I ventilated them real good. So yeah, there was still a little smell, but not much smell. I'm like, okay, it's time for them to come out here, because, oh my goodness, I had them in 2 separate totes, the remaining birds, because they were so big. And it was just overcrowded, and it was time for them to go outside. So I put them into their hutches. I was doing my hutch, each layer of the hutch. You can see this on the screen here. Each layer of the hutch, so there's 2 layers in each hutch, could hold 6 birds, because it's 6 square feet. And so that's what I was doing. So 5 or 6 birds per segment. And I have 2 hutches. So they're out there, and it's the first day, and I'm anxious because I'm worried about the odor of boiled linseed oil, and I'm doing every research I can do. Like, is the vapors of boiled linseed oil toxic to animals? And apparently it's not, but I was really worried. I'm like, oh no. And then, like, stop worrying, go about life. So I went about my life. I'm like, all right, they got to get used to the hutch. It's going to be something new. It's a different environment than the totes. And then a couple hours later, I go out, and there's a dead one just laying there. I'm like, oh my God, like, something here is killing them. It's the vapors. It must be. So I evacuate all the birds, and I put them in totes inside, and I even got extra totes so they could be thinned out so they're not packed on top of each other like sardines. And I did more research online, and more, and people laugh. It's not research. You're not actually doing tests on animals. You're just reading other people's writings. You're not an expert. Yeah, I wasn't an expert. I was a beginner looking at people who are competent lay people and their experiences. That's what I was looking at. So I isn't that cute? They're so cute. I love them. So I took the bird who died. It was a male. I called him Ichabod, and I examined him, and it looked like undigested food in his cloaca. So I think he had a digestive disorder. And so he might have died from that. He also might have died from trying to fly. People have told me that sometimes you put them in a new environment, and they take off to fly, and they knock their heads. and they just knock themselves dead. They could have a brain bleed or concussion or whatever. So I tried doing CPR, and I just improvised it. I just blew air in his nose, and I fucking pressed on his chest to try to revive him, and I couldn't. And so I wept, and I buried him, and I wrote a letter about Ichabod too. Because my son, first day he was out in his hutch, he died. So, rewind the clock a little bit, back to before Ichabod died. I did the post-mortem on the unhatched eggs, and there were 4 birds who did not hatch, who died in their shell, and 2 that weren't fertilized. And I was looking for any obvious signs of trauma. And again, these eggs were, and these bodies were in there for several days after they died, so they were stinky. And I'm not a veterinarian. I'm not a biologist. I'm just a dude who's trying to understand his animals, and I don't know why they didn't hatch. It could be they did. The only thing I can guess, and it's just a guess, I've heard this happening, where if you take the top off the incubator to get out some of the chicks who had hatched, then the sudden drop in moisture can cause the eggs to kind of shrink wrap, and then the birds can't peck their way out because it's too dry. They need the shell to be moist, and that's possible that I killed them. And also, I had a mishap handling the incubator and picking it up to move it, and I dropped it. So it could be the shock of impact while they were still in the egg killed them. I don't know. All I know is that I had 4 who died, and it was just terrible. And so, in the order that I counted them, Alpha was a bird, Bravo was a bird, Charlie and Delta were unfertilized, so I didn't name them, and then there's Echo and Foxtrot. And I gave them these phonetic names because I didn't get to meet them. They didn't even breathe air. They didn't get to explore the world. I didn't get to see them or have any kind of connection to them. So, I was sad that they died, but not as sad as Bartholomew, Innocent, and Ichabod. So I buried after I did the post-mortem, I buried the bodies next to the other birds, and I put a note there too. And I buried notes with all the animals under my care who died. I have lost now 3 cats, which I will talk about in another video, probably multiple videos. And I leave the notes so that if anyone were to excavate in the future, 10 years from now, 50 years from now, 100 years from now, 200 years from now, aliens come after humans have wiped themselves out, they can know about one man and the animals that he loved for what it's worth. Because I love them. Look at these little critters here. I love them so much. They're my children. See me there? I just put in some sand for them to have sand baths. These creatures love sand baths. They only live a year and a half to maybe 3 years at the longest. They're very short-lived animals. They're prey animals. They're R-type reproduction, and I'm not supposed to have affection for them, and I'm not supposed to give a shit about them, and I'm not supposed to love them because they know what they are. They do what they do, and I'm supposed to just accept it. And maybe it's a curse of being intelligent. Maybe it's a curse of being someone who can consider multiple variables when assessing a problem, where the average person's like, whatever, I'm the top, I'm the dominant creature, and they can just die. And that's all there is to say about it. And fine, if that's the way your brain works, and that's the way your brain works. My brain works differently, and my heart works differently. These are my children. And this is not a replacement for human offspring. It just, that particular subject just wasn't in the works for me. And if I had human offspring, these would still be my children. There's a really long-winded story about animal cruelty and the struggles I face with how I eat, how I should eat. And sometimes I envy people who either their hearts are cold or their brains are limited and they don't even have to think about what they eat. They just eat and that's it. They don't even have to think about gratitude. They're like, I'm going to eat. Ugh, ugh, ugh. Oh, I am so jealous. So I just want to add a correction here. Apparently, they could live 3 to 5 years in captivity if you don't overwork them. What I mean by overwork them is that they need a certain amount of daylight typically to lay eggs. Now, I went through my first winter with them, and most of them stopped laying. Occasionally, one would ovulate, but for the most part, they didn't lay any eggs at all. So, um, but if you keep lights on inside of the hutch and give them like 14 hours of sunlight or artificial light all the time, the hens will keep laying, but then they'll get tired, and then their bodies wear out faster. So that's why I said like a year and a half. But if you let them have a break in the wintertime and then lay in the spring, summer, fall, then they could live like 3 to 5 years in captivity. I just learned that, so sharing that with you.